Welcome to #FinanceMaster. Kick back, relax, and enjoy this week's show.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the #FinanceMaster show live on LinkedIn. Always exciting to be here with you and sharing the latest trends in finance and accounting. Today's topic is hacking the annual report. Some say it's the holy grail of finance, but perhaps there's a way to do it a little bit different. The rules of the show are simple. We are recording it to be released as a podcast, and you can catch all the previous shows on your favorite podcast channels. And ever since we went live on LinkedIn, we are also broadcasting it directly to the #FinanceMaster YouTube channel. So there you can go and find all the previous recordings, at least of the LinkedIn lives, and go and subscribe for future events there as well. So lots of opportunities to follow the show, and really excited to have you all here again with us today. You can be a part of the show too. You can write a comment in the event page, and we will bring it up in case you have questions. You can also just let us know where you're tuning in from. I'm always happy to hear that as well, just to see where you're from and why you're here. So don't forget to do that. Either here on YouTube or anywhere else, we'll be sure to bring you up. So if you have any questions around the annual report and how to improve that process, today is the opportunity to ask those questions. But let's dive into it. So we have published a blog post earlier today. It does seem like LinkedIn is giving us a bit of hassle in terms of pushing it out, but I'll continue to try to make sure you can also read the blog post if that's what you prefer. But speaking of the annual report, if you're as old as me, you probably remember the song "You Can't Touch This" by MC Hammer. Another thing we cannot touch, at least in finance and accounting, is the annual report. It's almost like the Holy Grail or the pinnacle of the work we do in the finance function. If we were to suggest any radical changes to publishing an annual report, the finance profession would likely bring out the pitchforks. This is not to say that the process hasn't been streamlined in the past 2 decades. Modern ERP and consolidation systems have significantly impacted how we prepare the annual report. At the same time, though, the length of an annual report has also increased significantly. This is driven by ever increasing complex accounting standards, a growing pool of stakeholders wanting information from the company, and the desire for internal communication and marketing teams to showcase the company in a positive light. What's the value of all this work? Of course, it probably depends on who you ask. But I'll go out on a limb here and say that the value is close to nothing from a company perspective. Why is that? Let's take a look at it. Well, first and foremost, when you publish your annual report, the information is usually outdated. Obviously, it's historical information, so in that sense, you can argue it's outdated information no matter what you do. But it's not like people don't know, right? Because if something varies significantly from what you're going to publish, you have to say and tell the market as soon as possible. Secondly, companies have a plethora of media channels to communicate on today, diminishing the value of one extensive communication in the annual report. Why wait for this specific document to go out? Why not just communicate whenever you think is relevant? Speaking of investors, they have more direct access to company executives than ever before. We can talk about shareholder and media days, investor days, and so on. More on that, right? Different kind of analysts can maybe also make appointments directly with investor relations and have different chats there. So no one is really surprised when the annual report comes out. Another issue is that it takes a considerable number of resources to produce. I'm sure you are proud by the product that you produce. Yes, of course. But is it really worth all the resources? I'm not sure. Finally, executive management and the board, they get much more frequent financial communications. So it's not for them really either. They know what's happening. They know what's going on. So what is really the value? Of course, it's fair to argue that the annual report is not supposed to create value for the company, but for society. It's an opportunity for regulators to get an aligned company value statement following recognized standards. It's an opportunity for regulators to get a certified third party, i.e., the auditor, to sign on the company's book value. And it's an opportunity for policymakers and society to uphold the company to broader practices like ESG, such as the CSRD regulation coming out from the EU these years. However, the work should be reduced to these practices if the value is purely from an external perspective. It's time we took a serious crack at hacking the annual report process to generate new value for the company. And in today's show, we will share 5 more radical hacks to transform the annual statement, the annual report. But before we do that, just a small reflection question for all of you out there. Have you already hacked your process? Have you already done something different from the traditional way of doing annual reporting? If yes, what have you done? And how did you do it? Put it in the comments, right? Let us know, and we can bring up some of these perspectives as well. So, 5 hacks for annual reporting. Imagine you had to do the annual reporting from scratch and could design a completely different process. What would you do? And how would you do it? Here are 5 more radical ideas or hacks to do it differently. Let's start with the obvious one. Let generative AI write the report. Maybe it seems obvious today, but perhaps it was unfathomable just a few years ago. Yet building a Gen AI app that sits on top of your data and has access to all public and internally available information about your company should make this possible. Feed it with your accounting standards and press generate. Challenge me if you don't think that's possible. I definitely think it is. Number 2, I don't know if you think that's more radical or not, but hand over the process to FP&A. We haven't tested this with the FP&A team, but one could argue that the only value in the annual report is the forward-looking statements. So we could automate the rest, let FP&A and investor relations craft the storyline and the outlook, and spend time communicating that in more depth. Right? This is what can move the market. Number 3, perhaps maybe some of you find it radical, maybe some of you are already doing it. Start a continuous close process. This may already happen in some companies. However, instead of running a large annual and in larger companies supplemented by a quarterly process, you could just run a continuous process. That will give all stakeholders a view of your company in the way they need it at any given time. Number 4, utilize blockchain technology. When I started looking into blockchain some 7 years ago in 2017, this seemed like a straightforward way to go. Since then, not so much has happened. But done right, this could radically improve the quality and trustworthiness of your annual report. It would also enable much faster insight generation for internal reporting and analysis. Blockchain may not be as hot a topic today as it was 5 or 10 years ago, but it still has merit as a viable data recording method. And the final hack, use non-traditional data sources. You could enhance financial reporting with many non-traditional data sources, such as social media sentiment analysis, geopolitical risk assessments, or consumer behavior analytics. This would allow you to publish new and insightful information in your annual report and provide more value to all stakeholders, internal and external. It's easy to imagine even more radical approaches to annual reporting, such as dynamic, user-configurable reports, where users could slice and dice the report for added insights. How about integrated augmented reality, where you have a visual layer to a report, where, for instance, the CEO could pop out on different sections, adding further insights. Even more spacey, you could imagine using neural linked financial analysis, where the annual report adapts to your preferred way of processing information. Now, I won't say the possibilities are endless, but there are certainly a lot of opportunities to do this differently. If you don't believe it's possible to hack the process, we want to hear from you. Put it in the comments. Let us know. We certainly believe it is possible. Of course, we need to go from radical hacks to practical reality. We're unsure how you determine what you could change in your annual reporting process. Yet we believe each of the 5 hacks presented here is realistic and can be implemented. We would encourage you to start small and experiment with 1 or 2 of the ideas, and perhaps only do it on a subset of your data. Most companies are experimenting with building their own GenAI applications. So why not develop one for your annual report? You could test it on something as simple as one note in the report and see how it could be generated. When built and tested successfully, you could expand it to other notes. Software already exists to create a continuous closing process. You need to expand it to cover your annual reporting requirements as well. It would probably warrant some internal conversations about what value you would get from this. It is certainly possible. We get that radically transforming the annual report is a big ask, not least because it has reached almost crazy sizes for, let's say, listed companies. However, if we don't challenge ourselves, we'll be stuck running an annual wheel that drains finance and accounting professionals of energy. It will fuel an already increasing talent drain in the finance function, and soon, nobody will be left to run the process. Don't wait until it's too late to hack your process. Start today by exploring how to implement one of the suggested hacks here. We're definitely keen to hear from you how you would do this differently. And if you see no reason to do differently, let us know why. You can see Sunita Singh here saying that she doesn't believe it's possible to hack the process. It's fair because, of course, it is linked to a lot of compliance and control requirements. And doing things radically different may put your company at risk. So I understand the concern. But if all you need to do is satisfy compliance and control requirements, you don't need a 250-page report. Simply not needed. You can definitely cut a lot of things away. So maybe that's the simple challenge, to take out your last annual report, go through it cover to cover, and mark out what pages are really needed. And of course, with new requirements coming along all the time, this is not a fixed thing, it's going to be a dynamic thing. But you certainly don't need everything you have in your annual report today. If you have questions on today's session on hacking the annual report, feel free to put them in the show notes or the comments, and we're happy to try to address those. We're in the middle of a series called Hacking the Annual Wheel in Finance, trying to look at some of the core processes that we're working on, like annual reporting, next week, month-end reporting, planning and forecasting, and so on. Seeing how can we do this differently. And we'll continue to present some, not just normal standard process improvement tips and tricks, but maybe some more significant hacks, radical, some would even say, that you can use to transform the process. Until then, though, I think it's time to close today's show. And I'll be sure to make sure that the blog post is going to be available sometime later during the day when LinkedIn fixes their technical issues. But a big thank you to everyone who tuned in today. And I hope to see most of you again next week when we tackle the topic of month-end reporting. So until then, bye for now, and see you next week.
You've been listening to #FinanceMaster. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on the latest trends in finance and accounting.